and welcome to step 3 of the Health Medics Job Planning Wizard, which for most of you will be the on-call section, but don't worry if it isn't the on-call section. It might be that step 2 was your on-call section because some of the steps have been missed out for you. So if we just quickly go back into the Doctor login. I'm logged in here as Mr. Andrew Corbett, and Mr. Corbett is doing a couple of different T&O on calls with varying frequencies and also varying ways in which that they're going to sort of be broken down. So if we just start with a look at the screen here, so we've got the 2 on calls separately, 1 per line. Here, and we've also got a summary of what those on-calls total in terms of the PA and also the supplement percentage. Now in the UK, what we go off is the highest frequency in the on-call section with regards to what that supplement percentage would be. So most of you will be very familiar with that, but it is slightly different for other territories. So that will be explored separately. So if I wanted to review any of the rotas that have been added here and the detail contained in them, I can just hover over any of these icons here, which will give me what the comments are against those on-call rotas and what objective that they're linked with. But if I did need to change anything relating to the on-call, I can just simply click on this little pencil icon and go straight back into the on-call there. So maybe the amount of unpredictable on-call has slightly increased. Maybe you've done a diary coding exercise and it's actually on average increased throughout that cycle. So if I put that down as 1 hour, and I can actually change that time as well. So it says how much of this takes place in premium time. Well, if we're talking about unpredictable coverage, then the likelihood is that that's all going to occur within premium time, but that might not necessarily always be the case, so please do bear that in mind. Maybe that's the only little minor adjustment that I need to make on that, but what we can do is if we save this here, we can see that any sort of PA breaches that the trust might have put in place for us, it will come up with a little warning sign and ask us to confirm that we're wanting to continue. We are in this case. So then that will have updated the PA reflection against that particular rota and also upgraded it on the on-call summary section. So both of those sections will be slightly more than they were previously. If I want to delete a rota, I can just delete a rota from here, or I can add an additional rota from this way. So first thing that we would be talking about is choosing the appropriate on-call rota in this section. So if we scroll down to the T&O ones, maybe I'm going to put in the category A1. I'm going to suggest that I'm doing this at the City Hospital and that the categorisation is A. Now normally your trust will have indicated what the categorisation and frequency of that rota is in the title of the on-call, which is the frequency and the categorisation that they're wanting you to select in this area here. If that is incorrect, then you would need to escalate any of those to either your line manager or your trust administrator, who will be detailed in the support section. So if I put that as a 1 in 8 for weekend and weekdays. Now, predictable hours is the amount of hours that you're predictably going to do whilst you're on call. Now, this might be that you're predictably on call for a full 24 hours. However, a lot of that time is either going to be off-site and you're only sort of going to be predictably there for a certain amount of time. So maybe out of my 24 hours, I can predictably say that I would be in the organisation for 10 of those hours. What you next need to consider is whether or not any of those hours are already timetabled in our routine work section. So if we're already going to be there between 9 and 5, then there's actually 8 of those hours that would be displaced. So if I'm doing a 10-hour day, and because I'm on call, I'm doing slightly extra, so that means that's displacing 8 hours. This section here you would use if you were doing hours past 7 o'clock in the evening, predictably, when you're on call. Again, you need to be careful that if you've timetabled that time, that you don't also add it into here. So it's important to remember that if you are timetabling it, that you're also displacing the appropriate amount. Or if your organisation does prefer to just timetable the activity, then there wouldn't be any need to actually add this in the into the predictable section at all. So I'm just going to put in zeros there. Unpredictable time associated with a weekday on call is usually by agreement an average of what everybody would normally spend when they're on an on-call. So sometimes this is going to be more, sometimes this is going to be less, but on average it would work out perhaps at 2 hours of interruption throughout the evening when you're on call, and you're holding the bleep, so you're it for the evening. Again, normally this unpredictable time would occur out of hours. However, if there is some element of potentially being called out before 7 o'clock in the evening, make sure to actually record the appropriate amount here as to how much of that takes place in between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning. Again, here I'm going to say that it's all 2 hours, because normally if you're doing longer hours during the day and you've timetabled it, then it will also be already timetabled for you. Again, I've got the weekend frequency as a 1 in 8. Now, Friday is sometimes classified as a weekend day. So sometimes we can have slightly different questions here. Again, if you hover over any of the questions on the left-hand side here, it will come up with a further explanation in terms of what it wants you to actually input in that section. So it's relatively easy and quite simple to kind of get through this part of it. So if again I'm suggesting that I'm doing predictable and unpredictable time, well, our unpredictable time needs to be a sum of everything that happens over the 2 days, not what happens on each day. So if I'm saying that I've got 2 hours of unpredictable amount per day, and it's the same at the weekend as it is in the weekday, then that would be a total of 4 hours. So we know there that that's fine. You could decide to, again, timetable your emergency work that is predictable, but again you would still need to add in the frequency here so that the availability supplement is correct. So again, if you have got an availability supplement associated with the weekend and weekday work that you're classifying as on call, even if you've entered it all into the routine work section and you don't have any predictable on call, you would still, for a supplement percentage, need to add in your frequency here. So it's important to note that this is actually still quite a vital area to make sure you get right. Again, I'm going to leave this at 0, because if I'm going to do any predictable on call, I would probably put it in my routine work section where I can actually associate that with times of the day that I would predictably be there. I'm going to link that with a service objective, and I'm also going to just add complete nonsense to the commentary area, so just so you can actually see that coming back into the section here. So here we go with our 1 in 8 rota, added it at the bottom there. It's given us our relative PA payment per week and added it in the summary section onto everything else. But it still hasn't meant that we're actually doing it, and then anything that is higher frequency than an 8, which is equal to a 5% supplement. If there is, again, any changes that you're wanting to highlight with your line manager, then enter the commentary here and click save and continue. Save and exit if you're wanting to exit job planning and start, come back to where you've left off another day. Here I'm going to save and continue. Thanks for listening.